Okay, thank you, Dustin. Welcome, everyone. This is the State Building Code Council IEBC Technical Advisory Group for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Could we please try roll?
All right, give me one moment. All right. For the chair prime, Todd Bayreuther.
Here.
For the chair alternate, Roger Hiringa. Not here today. For the architect position, primary, Joe Manuel.
Here.
Thank you. For the alternate, Jeff Fortaleza. I see Che in the attendees list, but you're not unmuted if you're saying anything, Che.
Present.
Gotcha. Thank you. For the building official primary, Tim Woodard. Not seeing him in our guest list today. For the alternate, Steve Belzak. Also not seeing in our list today. For fire services representative, Dan Young.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate, Lance Dahl. Not seeing him online today. For cities and counties primary, Hoyt Jeter.
I'm here.
Thank you. For the alternate, Sean Carlstrom. Not seeing him online. For general contractor developer primary, Bill Mybush.
Present.
Thank you. For structural engineer primary, Joshua Mergens. Not seeing him online. For the alternate, Trent Tinney. Not seeing him either. For building owner property manager primary, Brett Conway.
Present.
Thank you. For general public SMEs, Michael Barth is the primary.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate, Leah Summer.
Present.
Thank you. For state enforcement agencies primary, Paul Clark.
Present.
Thank you. And for fire protection engineer primary, Andy Leonto.
Present.
Thank you. So we got 9 out of the 7 required for quorum. So if anybody has to leave, just let me know as you head out. And if you come on back, raise your hand so I can just make sure we maintain quorum throughout this one.
Okay. Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Anyone from the public like to be recognized? Okay. If not, we'll come back anytime. Agenda item 2, review and approve the agenda. Can we hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Michael.
Second that.
Andy, any discussion or proposed changes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so approved. Item 3, review and approve the meeting minutes from June 13th, I believe.
Yes.
For your motion to approve as we're scrolling.
And Chair, this is Lance Dahl. I'm a few minutes late.
Thank you and welcome, Lance.
Had trouble getting on.
Yep, thank you. Okay, we scrolled it. Motion to approve? Wait, was that you? Okay. I think I heard it. Can we have a second, please?
Second, Bill.
Thank you. Bill? Any discussion? Edits? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so approved. Thank you. Okay, item 4, I believe would be, would anyone like to address the tag for an item not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go right into our item 5, which is our chapter reviews, please.
Alrighty. I'd like to pick up today on chapter 11. I am right in the middle of chapter 4, and I've got the preface chapters completed. There's not a whole lot going on in there, but I figure we can get those done pretty quick. Maybe at the end, if we can rock through some of the more the chapters that have a little bit more content in them. And since I got my name on the preface and chapter 4, and I'm not quite done with 4, I'd like to just skip over to 11 on that one and get going. So with that, I'm going to be opening up the chapter 11 review done by Brett Conway, and we'll get rocking. All right. Let me adjust the zooms on these things. All right. So Brett, is Brett online today?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Just making sure you stand by in case we have some questions here. Moving forward. All right. First amendments are in 1101.2. So we have a big slug of them here: 1101.2.1, 1101.2.2, 1101.2.3, all the way through to 1101.2.9. And Brett, your recommendation is to keep the state amendment.
Yeah, we had gone through this a bit. I don't know if we finished the chapter. There was a discussion about reconciling ANSI, the new version of ANSI, with the state amendments and whether they've been incorporated or not. So that's this first section.
Okay.
And so I think we left a tag in there to reconcile with the new ANSI A111.
So do we, when we went over this, could you remind me what meeting was that we left off on this one?
It was
If you
after
remember.
10, after we went through 10.
Okay.
I haven't
Just
many
cruising back through some notes real quick. I'm sorry.
so ways back.
So did you compare the new ANSI with what we have?
No, I hadn't. And so I think that was the tag we left. A note that we had left is to, it could have been that some of these things are now not applicable because the new version of ANSI picks that up. So I can do that.
And then also the section references, make sure they're correct too.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not finding specific notes on this one if we went through this a little bit, but I do see notes in here as well. So so on this section we need to go back and evaluate the references within the ANSI.
Yes.
Okay.
And some of the dimensions too, there's been some changes in the ANSI just to make sure the dimensions are all correct.
Okay.
Because you don't want the state to be less accessible unless we got approval, I think, by
Right.
legislation or whatever that needs approval. Like, for example, the circle's gone from 60 inches to 68 inches. That's an example of
Right.
change.
And the exterior accessible route, I think the state is still wider than ANSI. I'll double check that one.
Yeah, I think you're right on.
Okay. Then does that cover all of 1101.2?
Yes.
Okay. So then our next state amendment is within 1106.7. So moving through 1106.7, we have the text inserted in here. It looks like the recommendation is to keep the existing amendment. Last sentence from the Washington Amendment is added to the model code. In this one, 7. Okay. So on this 1106.7 is the stuff in green here that was added in within the model code this season?
I think blue is the new amendments, and then the green is Washington State.
That is correct. I was just
Yeah,
the
sorry.
the statement is just the last sentence from the Washington Amendment is added to the model code.
Correct.
I don't know if that's saying that you've added in the amendment sentence here. Okay.
Yeah, that's in green there.
Yeah, we're good. Next amendment. So I guess let me skip over to the significant changes section, 1107.2 and 1107.2 exception 2. So we're not quite there yet. The recommendation in exception 1, R4 has been added by the model code. TAG needs to review this new language. I think that the R4 addition in here is okay to leave because we adopted that earlier this year with an off-cycle rule. And with the recommendation to review the new language in the exception number 2.
And exception 2 we discussed at our committee meeting, and I had made a different recommendation, but through the discussion made sense to keep it the new model code language.
Okay. We have the so in 1107.2.1 we have the number of vehicle spaces, seeing section 429.4 with a recommendation to
This is a cross-reference to the EV requirements that the state has, and just making sure we're pointing at the right section where it comes into the model code. It's
yes,
429.4. Yeah.
429. I think .4 is still going to be the correct space in there as far as the numbering of the sections. They didn't change in that area.
It's in the state. That's because there is no section 429 in the model code. It ends at 428. So all
Right.
4 off state stuff.
So we have a section 429 and a section 430 that's added in there. 2, 1. So on this one, will we say we want to keep this amendment?
Which one is that one?
1107.2.1.
Yeah. it's a good reference to kick you back. I just don't remember 429.4. I'd have to go look at that. I don't remember top of my head.
That's the EV parking requirements for chargers, conduit, raceway, and then it also talks about the accessible portions of those. So it's really more like energy code is the 429.4. Speaking of, it's a state amendment reference. So
Then, as far as 1107.2 exception 1, we have that in the, so we need to modify the existing amendment, make sure that R4 is included in there. The exception 2 for this one was the recommendation was just to incorporate the model code on that one.
yes.
Won't have to come back to that page anymore. So our next amendment is in section 1108.6.2.2.1. Looks like we skipped past it here. 6.
Is that the live work thing?
It's type A units in the dwelling units and sleeping units. So we have it in here, we just didn't get it in the spreadsheet, which is fine. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's right here. I'm scrolling around and it's not working for me today. Apologies. So keep the existing amendment text is inserted into the model code. Have some new stuff in there, so keep that one. Our next amendment is in section 1110.2. Toilet and bathing facilities. Looks like we are taking care of with the model code language changes on this amendment. Is that the take on that one, Brett?
Yes.
Next one is 1110.5.1. That one here is titled minimum number. This has moved to 1110.7.1.
Yeah, I think that's that fountain one, right? The
Yeah.
drinking. Yeah, that's specific for our, we substitute bottle filling stations. We tried to get that in the national, but didn't get approved. The reason why people were saying the argument was just so people know, making sure the bottle filling stations keep being full. you know, so because we have no control of that. I still think it's a good change, but people didn't seem to vote for it.
I believe that that's going to bring us to the end of a section or chapter 11 on that one. Does anybody want to go back and review any other sections that we scrolled by already? All right, then it looks like we are in a position to entertain a motion to move this one to our master document.
Make a motion to move it to our master document.
Okay, thank you, Hoyt.
Second it.
A second from Brett. So this is a motion for recommendation to approve chapter 11. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so approved. Go ahead, Dustin. Thanks.
All right. Close that one. Close that. So then we're going to move on to chapter 17 and 19. Roger won't be here to present those, but he thinks that they'll be pretty straightforward and be good for us to go through today.
I'm very familiar with those chapters too. So.
Okay. What the- All right, so starting with 17 there. Not a lot going on in chapter 17, so with our existing amendments, let me get to that chapter in our WAC real quick.
Yeah, the big one in that one is the tsunami stuff. We need to keep that.
Yep. So 170513.6, he's got listed as repeal the state amendment, the exact language in the model code. So let's get down there. 170513.6. Six. Plumbing and mechanical and electrical components. It's good to me. And then 1709.5. Exterior window and door assemblies. With the keep the existing amendment, it adds an exception for a small business. Not sure if this just isn't green in here.
No, we have I believe our state amendment for that, when you have a small business, that blue is actually the model code, right? What it
Right.
was, there's a state thing, where if you have a small business, you were kind of exempt from kind of the energy stuff, I think. Yeah, there it is. You're getting to it. I gotta be honest, I've never had anyone, I don't think I've ever had anyone ever use that provision personally, but
Which provision, Hoyt?
that custom exterior windows with door manufactured by SMORE for a small business, will be exempt. I mean, I gotta be honest, for how long I've been doing this, I haven't never seen anyone use that exception too, but
I skipped
what is it?
over Rogers 1705.2.2 and .2.6. He has a question on the cost for .2.6 for metal building systems. Let me scroll back up to 1705.2. .2.2. So new structural stainless steel on this one. He's got no cost, no amendment needed here. And then on 2.6, he doesn't know for the cost on this one's for the new metal building systems section right here. Is there any opinion on if this adds cost to the end user at all?
Well, yeah, because it's special inspection for the metal building systems. So this is like the pre-manufactured metal buildings. But most of this is kind of done anyway. It's kind of been done in the past. So the big difference that they did is continuous and periodic. So they've clarified it that it's periodic special inspection, not continuous. So in the national level, some people were taking this as continuous inspection. So they wanted to clarify for the metal building guys put this through to get approved. It's a periodic special inspection, but it has to be done by an approved inspection agency. So the X bracing is probably the big one because they found out that those things weren't being tightened enough. And so those small bars, they have small bars that do the X bracing. They would end up sagging in there. And then sometimes they would notch. Sometimes the metal building frame, when the X bracing would come through the channel or angles that were going through, and they wanted that stuff definitely verified. So that's why special inspection was put in there. If people are interested, I think we should keep it. So it will add a cost but it's the national code because they've had deficiencies on these pre-manufactured metal buildings with X brace, and that's a pretty common thing for these pre-manufactured metal buildings. They're fabricated, they're designed, and all the pieces are built somewhere else, and then they come erected at the site.
Gotcha. All right, then with that, we are ready to entertain a motion for chapter 17.
I make a motion to approve the items that we've covered and incorporate them accordingly.
Second.
Anything
Michael?
does Hoyt then Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
And Todd, did you say you had to run out at 2:30?
Yeah, I'll jump off for a couple of minutes. So go ahead and take the votes if you need to.
Okay.
Hand it
Gotcha.
to you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do we still have quorum and stuff? I assume
We
we
still
did.
have quorum. We were 2 over quorum. Actually, we're still 2 over quorum. So we're 1 over quorum now with Todd being out for a little bit. So if anybody else leaves, we can lose 1 more, and we'll still maintain at the moment.
And I'll be able to monitor here.
Okay, thanks. All right.
I'll need to drop this Brett. I'll need to drop off at 2:45.
Okay. Just remind me when you're heading out, and I'll make sure that we still maintain a quorum on that.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so there's no existing amendments in chapter 19, and I'm just going to pull up the chapter so we can run through it real quick. And as far as a spreadsheet on this, he didn't have any significant changes either on this. So we'll just scroll through. If anybody has anything they'd like to add to our report, I can pop one open real quick and add it to here for a significant change.
Yeah, just to let people know, a lot of these things actually got added to the ACI code, so that's why it's not significant. Some of it is the ACI, so, and then ACI is ultimate, so they added some working stress stuff in this, so it shouldn't be much change.
It looks significant because there's a lot of blue there. And that's the end of chapter 19. Does anybody have any specific sections they'd like to chat on? All right, then we are ready to entertain a motion for chapter 19.
I'll make a motion to approve no amendments in chapter 19 for our state.
Second it, this is Bill.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices. All those in favor of moving chapter 19 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, that motion passes. Let me update some other notes here real quick.
Yeah, just giving some people some heads up so they know. SEAW, there probably will be a state of proposal to, it'd be modifying the ACI for kind of adopting some of the, to make sure the concrete members stay ductile. Because the standard that we use now, they kind of missed a point, and it's going to be in the next standard. So that's going to be a proposal that will be submitted to the State Building Code Council. Or I don't know who will be reviewing that, but it's a pretty significant change for designers. But it has to go through the whole process. It has. We're drafting it up right now to submit it in. Dustin, that reminds me, like when they do that, when they put a code proposal through, let's say someone where they want to get it by the state approval.
Mm-hmm.
If I've been involved in any of that stuff, do I have to kind of excuse myself for making any votes, or do we even get involved with that? Is that something the tag will get involved?
I guess it depends on kind of where it enters the process at, but if we get a proposal from, like, say you, and that's directed down from the building code council to the tag, and your name's all over the proposal, it would probably be best practice to recuse yourself from the votes on that particular proposal. But that doesn't mean you can't have input during the discussion and stuff like that.
Okay.
All right, we're moving to chapter 20, another one that has no state amendments, and it looks like there's just been so much change in this one. Let's, I guess, entertain a motion to move chapter 20 to our master document.
Make a motion to move chapter 20 to the master document.
We have a second.
Second, this is Bill.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of moving chapter 20 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, that motion passes. All right. Just updating the spreadsheets here. All right, that brings us to chapter 28. Tim Woodard let me know in his review that there's no amendments and no significant changes to that one. We'll open it up real quick, scroll through it, and we will be on down the road on that one as well. So give me 2 seconds here.
I think that too will be a quick scroll.
Yep. Oh man, it's the whole screen's worth. All right, a motion for chapter 28 to move to our master document.
This is Bill. I'll motion to move chapter 28 to the master document.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor of moving chapter 28 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices, that motion passes. Moving into chapter 29, this one was done by Brett Conway, and I'll get that open here in just a second. Brett, I do have a couple different versions here. I have one that had a R1.
That's the one. Yeah,
Use that
R1.
one? Okay.
Thanks.
That one we have to change because we use the Uniform Plumbing Code, not the International Plumbing Code.
Well, then maybe my insertions are into this model code don't make sense in this context, the IPC, UBC.
All right, well, let's run through it real quick. Please get me to the WAC numbers here, 1 second. All right, so in the existing amendments review, the first amendment is in section 2901.1. Technologies. So up here in 2901 is all the strikeout, underline the inclusion of the amendment to this section, or is this a suggested change to the model code?
Suggested change.
Okay.
We don't actually have a Washington State Plumbing Code. Don't we have Uniform Plumbing Code as amended by Washington State?
Pretty much. So if we are looking at that, we just recently got our plumbing code published, integrated like we're doing with ICC with IAPMO.
Right.
And so this one,
Yeah, I have that. I'm just saying what you write right there. We don't have a Washington State Plumbing Code. We have the Uniform Plumbing Code that's amended by Washington State.
right.
Oh,
I wanted to point it out that it is called the Washington State Plumbing Code in the UPC website now.
Oh, they actually have it there. I didn't know that. Has all our amendments.
We just got this put together at the beginning of the year. It went live maybe 2 weeks ago on this one.
Yeah.
So it's just like we coordinated with the ICC. We have the same image on the covers, and this contains all the amendments. But you're looking for double sidebars for locating those amendments in this code text. And let's see, I'd have to.
We're looking at the 2024. So.
Oh yeah, we're gonna update this one. We've already got the 2024 plumbing code from them ready to begin work on that one. And so just a heads up, we do have this out there, and it's just the state amendments aren't as readily visible as they are on the ICC website.
So maybe my review is really needs to be based on the new version of the plumbing code here. So maybe we just push by my review.
Okay, do you want to hold off on it for now at the moment?
Yeah. Doesn't really. So I'll work to make sure that the existing Washington State amendments are in the 24 Uniform Plumbing Code.
Well,
So
this is
chapter 29
of the
amendments.
building code, so we're not doing the whole UPC as part of this chapter here.
It's just the water closets account and all that stuff, because the problem is plumbing always comes in later a lot of times. So if you don't have the right water closet counts, a plumbing fixture counts put in the building, you have a problem later on.
Yep.
But the committee that reviews these and makes the changes are the uniform. It's supposed to be modifications to the uniform plumbing code, not modifications to the international plumbing code. Even though it's very similar. I mean, there's not a big difference, but I think the big thing is the drinking fountain requirements. I thought that was going off the top of my head, but it's,
Yeah, we should go ahead and go through the 29 because the IBC chapter 29, our amendments really they're more administrative in nature. They're not the technical aspects, which we get from the plumbing code. But the the scoping and the administrative portions of what needs to be provided, and then the plumbing code itself will do the how it is provided.
right. And there's a plumbing code tag, right? That's going through this too.
Yeah, they're not. So the UPC is part of Group 2, so that won't begin work until next year.
Oh, so then we definitely need to. Okay, then we definitely probably need to go through this then.
Yeah, and most likely our state amendments have not been captured in the code. Most likely we're going to need to retain our amendments.
Do you go, Mike, to the IAP? I don't go to the IAPMO meetings for when they vote on the building code tags because I'm not an approved voting member for that, so I don't know.
Nor have I.
Yeah. So pretty much, I think the thing that needs to be done for the plumbing system in Chapter 29 is we need to make sure any reference to the uniform plumbing code is correct. And then I would check to make sure the table is correct too. So, because I thought there were changes to that. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, the Washington table has a different, an additional column than this plumbing code.
And was that for the water fountains? Or I can't remember. Drinking fountain. I could be wrong. I thought our Washington State didn't match the I codes for drinking fountains. They went off the uniform plumbing code. But I'm going off memory.
So, I mean, if we just run through what we have going on here, we'll come to those sections. I would say if we are working with 2901.1, the scope here, which I have shown in line below the model code section with some of those changes, I would recommend that we keep this amendment. It doesn't look like there's any section in here that needs to be updated. Moving to 2901.2 and 2901.3, both of these in here are additional sections added by Washington State Amendment, and Brett has the recommendation to keep these amendments. I don't see anything in 2901.2 that should be updated. I think the fixed guideway and transit and passenger rail systems, that section will need to be updated for its relocation in the codes. But other than that, I think to keep the amendment and modify.
I thought our health code had a Washington State for these things for food preparation. There was also a Washington State approval you had to get for that.
I think you do have to do that, but I'm not sure exactly what all that is entitled, what all you have to do to do that.
I already know that, but I just wasn't sure if that needs to be added. It's a WAC provision, I believe. Talks about food preparation.
Hey, Dustin, Steve Belzak, I'm on board. I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know you got in here today, Steve.
You bet.
And that helps our quorum a bit more as well. So we're back up to +2 on that with Todd being out for a little bit.
Hey, good.
That's good to hear. I need to go to the restroom, so I'll tell you when I get back.
Okay. Okay. All right, 2901.3, we'll keep all of those when we need to renumber for fix that chapter and for fixed guideway transit and passenger rail systems. Our next amendment is in section 2902.1.
So for discussion, I kept for visuals here, the existing table, and then what's below this table is the Washington State table. So there's some different formatting and different information in the Washington State table or 2902.1.
So we have our state amendment to this code text here.
We do have a amendment in the charging language there.
And it looks like 2902. So based on the actual use of the building or space is deleted.
I'm back.
Thank you, Hoyt. Then uses not shown in table 2902 shall be determined individually. So we have a recommendation to keep the existing amendment here. And then Brett, here in the worksheet that we were doing, says amendments were added to the model code. Is that for some of the lines in the table here?
Yeah, so if you just keep scrolling down, that's that's the existing table with the new 24 changes.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going down, you'll get to the Washington version, which adds this column here. It's occupancy column, the third column in. So it's kind of a different formatting of the same information. And so it seems prudent to consider keeping the Washington version with the updated text in the model code that's shown above in the blue.
So
these two need to be
modified.
merged. Yeah.
Okay,
I didn't do the merger.
that's all right.
And I also thought our drinking fountains was different from the table. That was the uniform plumbing code was different. That's what I remember.
I'll check that. I'll triple check that.
I don't think we adopted the drinking fountain provision of the table that was in the code. Mike, you would know that, right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, but it's in one of the later amendments here. It's
yeah, good.
Later in this chapter, we'll run across that.
Yeah. So what I recommend in our Washington, what we've always done is haven't had the drinking fountains put in that table, which is it looks like that's what it shows right now. But if you look over here in the state, you see the drinking fountain. Yeah, that's different. So that's why we want to keep that's one of the big changes. I think I agree that I don't think there was many changes. Everything else, it was more the drinking fountain was completely eliminated from the table, and we did it differently.
So I take the 24 version, add Washington's occupancy column, and then triple check the blue text.
Yeah, and we need to check what Washington what else I think the state did amend a couple of other things in that table. So just need to go line by line for that comparison.
Table A,
Yeah, the I codes do not match the Uniform Plumbing Code. So that's kind of the thing. They're close. It's hard to find the differences. That's why they sued each other. You guys didn't know that. For copyright infringements. That was what they did.
Okay. So the table just needs to be merged, and as we're getting ready to draft all that up, we can merge all that and make it nice and pretty looking.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident the water drinking fountains are different. I'm pretty confident there are places I just.
Well, we
You have
have
to
29025 and 29025 that deal with drinking fountains in here.
And not to throw a monkey wrench in it either, but we did have a conflict in our state code because let me find it. Sorry, not having done this chapter, I'm not prepared for all this, but I just need to find my scribble notes. In our amendment 2902.5.1, we have drinking fountain number, occupant loads over 30 shall have one drinking fountain for the first 150 occupants. But then there was an unamended code section in 2902.6. Let me make sure I'm getting my numbers right. That
Yes.
said, small occupancies, drinking fountains shall not be required for an occupant load of 15 or more. And that line is still in the 24. So what it does is it creates an internal conflict within our code the way we adopted it. It's like when we changed and added the drinking fountain number section, we should have struck out 2902.6 or amended it. Because right now that does leave a conflict in the code. And I don't know if that's something that, should be fixed via a code change proposal or, by recognition that we have a conflict here.
Yeah, so if you scroll down to 29.02.6, you'll see where I redacted it to bring it in parallel to what the state has done and the
Okay,
amendments.
yeah, good. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly where what the conflict. So you found it too.
I've used that one in the past too. So,
Yeah, me too. And that's why I've come across it several times. So I have scribbled notes in my code books that point me to it, and essentially I go by the Washington State Amendment as opposed to the code language if there's an argument.
So for 2902.1.1.1 through 1.1.3, we have some additional state amendments in there that add language to the model code, and the recommendation is to keep those amendments. Fill that down.
Yeah, that's the gender stuff. That's something we can't get it. We've tried to get that put in the national codes, but there's people that fight against that. So you won't have any of the all gender stuff in the in some of that stuff. So
2902.2, more gender neutral stuff. There's some, says 2902.2 minor, in the wrong spot. 2902.2 separate facilities, some minor edits in here. It just looks like we have an amendment, but I'm not sure exactly what all it is. Looks like they.
It's the all gender stuff. That's what our amendment is. The all gender is what we put in our state.
Yeah, the amendment is the whole.
No, I mean 2902.2. We have a WAC number for it, and so I'm reading through it right now to see what the amendment actually is. It looks like the model code may have picked up our language.
Except we're a uniform plumbing code. That's the only difference.
Right, but we do have an amendment on this section.
Our amendment was in subsection 5 and 6, it looks like.
Yeah, it's the all gender stuff is where our
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. We amended the all gender stuff.
Yeah, because our amendment adds the reference to the 2902.2.2. And then our next amendment is the addition of 2902.2.2, which is the all gender, which does not show up in the base code. So for both of those, we would need to maintain those amendments.
So 5, 6, and 7. I don't know why that's doing that, but I'm just gonna put it in there as green. Okay. 2902.2.2. All gender, recommend keeping the existing amendment. .2.3, keep the additional exception there. .2902.5, this is the drinking fountain one.
We have one at 2902.3.3.
Must have scrolled by. 2902.3.3, location of toilet facilities and occupancies other than malls.
Weird, it's in my physical book.
So I'm seeing some amendments in the body of that, and then one change in the exception here. It looks like the exceptions picked up our amendment. We had industrial distance of travel. So the distances was part of our state amendment last time, and
Are you not showing a whack to 29.3.3?
so I don't have it up on the screen at the moment, but so 902 point. I was looking at this one because I like coming here to look to see what the amendment language actually is. So in the exceptions, they picked up distances in here. And then we have in each building which I just added in, and then
That or conveniently line.
Yeah, one of the changes on there, is it the red, the convenience of building adjacent thereof on the same property? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah,
Yes.
this I think was weird, but this is something we put in our state to be able to, that people that own the same property, you can use the water closet on the adjacent property. But I can tell you, one of the big thing is when we put it on our title, so they can't sell that other part of the building because the bathrooms or the water closets are in that other building. So just an FYI, that's a,
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know
I
why.
agree. For application, I've run into this hundreds of times probably.
Yeah,
'Cause
me
it
too.
often gets challenged, but
Well, no, we make them put it on basically on title and all that kind of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
really clear. And generally when you do that, they don't do it. I think this has been in there forever. Just FYI, we've had that.
it has. It's been in there a long time. And necessarily.
But I thought I'd give people how we handle that because it's a, you know,
Well, without the amendment, the raw 500 feet can be, 4 properties away and argued as such. So having it on the same property or, and like you say, conditioning permits for, for that to not be divided or changed because of that. Yeah, it's a good amendment. It's helpful. Sorry, Dustin, to keep you so busy.
All right. All right, I think we got that one covered in there. 2902.5 for drinking fountain location. Looks like all of this is additive state amendments. Yep. So 2902.5 through 2902.5.4.3 all add some stuff for drinking fountains in here.
Yes.
All right, with the recommendation to keep those existing amendments.
I think just to let you know at the hearings and stuff. Did we didn't cross off the accessible one, did we? Yeah, there it is, the 29.5.43. That was a mistake in ICC at one time. That they didn't have the accessible clearly in the code. We're keeping that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's for the bottle filling station. The sample.
Yes. So 2902.6 small occupancies, we do not adopt this section.
Oh, yeah, that did get corrected last year or the last cycle.
Yes.
I knew we'd talked about it.
On this one, we should maintain that amendment.
Yes. Simply to avoid the conflict that it created.
All right. All right. 2902.8 for dwelling units shall be provided with a kitchen sink. And 2902.9 water, both additive Washington amendments with the recommendation to keep both of those. And then that brings us to 29 to the table 2902.1, which for some reason comes after everything in our WAC language. I think we already kind of covered that in 2902.1 up here
Yes.
to modify incorporating the model code language changes and merging both tables is the recommendation on that one. I will.
Could you go back to 29.02.2?
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure one of the exceptions was added that's in the Washington state.
2902.2.2.
Yes, 7, you got it. Okay, never mind. The one with the weird formatting. So that's
Yeah.
7. Yeah, okay.
So number 5, 6, and 7 are where the amendments are located, and so when we go back and mess with this for our master document, I'll just have that there to incorporate those numbers
Great.
together.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the end of chapter 29 of the 2024 IBC. Does anybody have a section they'd like to go back and revisit? All righty, so then we are in a position to entertain a motion on chapter 29.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to move these forward for, as we've discussed on chapter 29.
Second,
Clint is the second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of moving chapter 29 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices, that motion passes. All right, give me just a moment to update some stuff. All right, so as far, let's see. Tim's not here today. Hoyt, did we get working on 32 and 33 by chance?
I did, we started it.
Okay. We could probably hit chapter 32. There's no existing amendments in that one.
There's none yet.
Or so I'm like right now I'm missing input on chapter 30 through 33 and 35 for the IBC. And we could circle back on those at a later date, or we can attempt to hit them now. We could pull back and hit the preface, or we could get into the International Existing Building Code. What would be the desire of the group here?
There's not very much on those other changes. I think Tim was working on them, but on those ones, we could do them probably right now. The rest of the IBC can be done.
Okay, then what I'll do is I'll open up chapter 30 here, and let me continue moving some stuff around here.
And this one in chapter 30, we just keep the existing amendments on there because it's Washington, well, the Washington State stuff. So
Okay.
whatever it is for, because LNI has to approve elevators. That's the only thing. All in addition to what we have to do.
Gotcha. Just give me one moment to get some stuff opened up.
Did I lose everybody? Did they
No,
shut-
you didn't. I think I'm just being quiet while I'm getting some stuff organized here. Just getting a blank spreadsheet out there. Come on. Come on. I'm almost there, guys. Give me 2 more seconds. Okay. Okay. Just got to get them open now. $30.
I think the only thing was Lula's, but I think we're okay with that. They dealt that with the standard, the accessibility standard.
All right. So First Amendment's in the section 3002.4. Then let's see. Looks like we have a bit different language in here for.
You accommodate for the structure. What was our amendment for that one?
It's here in green. Looks like they just kind of cut out this section here.
They didn't eliminate it. I don't
But they
think.
didn't eliminate it, but the language starts off significantly different and then has some subsections, and then it looks quite a bit different. I is just in the interest of time for today, I'll just be looking at kind of striking that model code language and replacing with our existing state amendment there. It looks like I've got it out of place.
But no, you have to keep the model code because they also have the 4 stories. Oh, we have it right there, 4 stories or more. Yeah, I believe it says pretty much similar in a lot of ways. Never mind, ignore what I said. Ignore what I said.
Okay. The next section for state amendment is 3005.2. And Hoyt, would you characterize any of the model code changes as significant changes that we've covered or scrolled by so far?
No, those aren't significant. That's a temperature control. What it's basically doing is making sure the thing doesn't damage the equipment. So it's basically just saying we don't have this problem in Washington as much as they do in the South. It's basically making sure the rooms have a proper temperature. So that's all. It's
Messed it up good there.
basically just saying, making sure the room has a temperature that support the equipment. That's it.
So maintain this amendment for temperature control?
No, I think the model code's fine. The model code kind of tells you that anyway. Model code says that specifically. 3005.2 has that in the model code. The only thing we did is well, I guess that's not true. We do have Puget Sound ASHRAE recommended outdoor design temperature, but really you have to do that anyway by the standard. I really never understood why we had that in there. Maybe Mike, you might know why you had to. I mean, ASHRAE already does that temperature. To be honest, the code really gets you there anyway. I don't know why it's.
Yeah, I don't know the history on this one.
Yeah,
We
you
do have
already
a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, you can leave it in. It's not a problem. No one has a problem with it. So.
Okay.
I believe it's already in the ASHRAE, out in the Puget Sound chapter of ASHRAE. So it was just clarified. That's a standard that's referenced in chapter 30. You know, what is it, 34, whatever, all the reference standards. It's already in there.
Okay, moving on. Our next amendment is in section 3006.3 for hoistway opening protection. So they've changed the title here a little bit.
Yeah, it 5 is the kind of the technical one. The rest is just. Yeah, we should keep the model code. Basically, I know this one. I was at the hearings when they talked about these things. I think we should stay with the model code.
Do we think that we should just incorporate the model code into our existing amendment?
No, I think the model code could stand alone.
So then the recommendation would be to repeal the existing state amendment for this section?
There's in the state amendment, we've added a section number to number 4, where the elevator hoistway shall be pressurized in accordance with section 909.6.3 and 909.21. So it was the addition, the amendment there was the addition of the 909.6.3, which if I recall, is our pressurization amendment. Again, I haven't looked at this to see the relevance exactly, but we may need to keep the amendment, but then also, allow or keep the new language as well. I'm just not sure. I don't know. Hoyt, have you looked at?
Yeah, I looked at that. Talked to our fire guy.
Motion detected at the doorbell.
Sorry.
I thought I heard something. Yeah. To be honest, I think the national code. I remember this was also discussed at the national level. I think we just need to stay with the national code. So. because in 909 it gets you to the fire code, and the fire code deals with all that stuff. So
Yeah,
So-
true. 90963 is pressurized stairways and elevator hoistways, but we do not have an amendment there anymore.
that's correct. I think this was left over.
Yeah, it may have been.
I think the fire, because it's in the fire in the IFC, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to bring it up with the fire group, just to be sure. But based on mine, I thought it was already incorporated in the IFC, then it's fine. So, I didn't think we need number 5. I mean, we don't need any state amendments, is what I'm saying.
So a recommendation then would be to repeal the existing state amendment.
Verify with the fire, verify with fire tab.
Okay, so, then I'll mark it as keep the state amendment with a comment to verify with fire code folks.
Not fire, the fire tag, yeah, the technical, because I think that's already in the fire.
Yeah, you could probably even, instead of saying keep existing amendment, you could probably say repeal existing amendment, but confirm with fire
Yeah.
tag.
Then moving on. That brings us to the end of chapter 30 right there. Would we consider the addition of number 5 on 3006.3 a significant addition that kind of makes it so we don't need to have a state amendment anymore, or we're not considering that a significant amendment?
You're talking about the blue and 5, right, down there, right?
Yeah, I just, is there anything we want to include on the significant amendments report? Since we're repealing, the only reason I bring this one up is because the recommendation to repeal, are we saying the model code changes are significant on that front? Or we're
So
saying
that would be, yeah, so item 5 was, an option that typically is addressed with item 3. But now, we have, I guess, an explicit item there to indicate that smoke protective curtain assembly. I think we should just keep it there, unless we plan on not approving the use of smoke protective curtain for protecting the elevator hoistway openings.
Okay.
Right, that's the thing, that's why fire should just verify it. To me, we just keep go by the model code.
All right, so that would bring us to the end of chapter 31. We would be looking, or chapter 30, I'm sorry. We'd be looking to entertain a motion to move chapter 30 to our master document.
Make a motion to move to our master document, chapter 30.
Second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on chapter 30? All those in favor of moving chapter 30 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that motion passes. We're gonna move right on into chapter 31. Make sure that this is saved appropriately. Right. All right, then this one, chapter 31. Our first amendment for chapter 31 is in 3101.1 for the scope.
I mean, the stuff they added on that was people are using shipping containers now. That was one of the thing in the flood hazard areas, but I don't think we need to amend that
Okay.
because we already, because the flood is different. If there's only, the only amendment that would be to that would be if we wanted to do something for the tsunami, but we already get to there anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. That's the thing they left out. You see where it says flood hazard area, but if you're also in a tsunami area, you got to do, but you get there in chapter 16.
Okay.
So I don't think it needs to be specifically referenced. Unless other people think so. Because tsunami's not nationwide. That's the only thing. So, I mean, I don't think they've ever had a tsunami in like Michigan. Well, maybe on the Great Lakes, maybe. I don't know.
Never know.
Or Idaho wouldn't get any tsunamis.
All right. Our next amendments in section 3103.1. Three dot one for general. So it looks like
They've actually defined what is how long a temporary structure could be on that. So I think certain cities, I know the city of Tacoma, we have ordinances that land use changes, but in the building code, that's okay.
so for 3103, do we want to incorporate the exceptions that they've added there?
Yeah, because the exceptions when approved by the building official.
So we would want to modify that one.
Just to give some people some FYI, there's people looking at putting a state amendment into the 180 days. So. I think the fire people are gonna do something on that. They think 180 days is too long.
I mean, I don't know. It's been temporary for me since forever when I started doing code. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have opinion really one way or the other on 180 days.
Yeah, I'm the same one.
Yeah.
It just seems like they're thinking about making it smaller. You know, these are like Circus Soleil, things like that. They put up like in Marymore Park or things like that. These are
7 days.
Yeah. So I mean,
Their
they
new
still have the
exception,
fire. Just to let everyone know, The fire code has a bunch of stuff for these things that they deal with. I don't think the building code has to worry about it personally. They have fire watches and all that kind of stuff.
The base code new exception number 1 could conflict with the state amendment by adding that up to a year part. It's still by approval, so it's kind of innocuous, but there is a conflict there.
Well, that's for the yurts you're talking about, right? Oh, you're talking about the recreational use for temporary structures, allow them to be used indefinitely.
The new blue exception 1, where 180 days or more, but not more than 1 year. So yeah, everything temporary has always been cut off at 180 days.
Well, no, where that came from, I think we should keep that. That came from natural disasters. So, and it says, that's why it says approved by the building official.
Yeah.
So what happens when a national disaster, let's say we have as you would say, the big one here, the big earthquake, right? We're going to hit that 180 days. I was over Turkey. So buildings are going to be damaged or you're not going to be able to get back in for over 180 days. So that's why they have approved by the building official. They wanted to have that in there. So a building official can extend that longer under emergency situation. But they didn't want to leave it in to extend it for a longer amount of time as a standalone. So they wanted it as a specific building official approval. So that's why I think we should stay with the model code. That's the reason. If you have to go over for that, I think the building official should you have to approve it. And the other thing is, like some of these things are put up where you don't design these for snow loads, for example, like in the middle of the summer here, you don't design the Cirque du Soleil for the snow loads on there. That's a temporary structure. And you can do that, but you wouldn't want it to extend over that because you could get a higher live loads. So just giving some people some FYI. I like the way it is personally, but definitely other people have input on that. I just know the history from it when people talking about it.
Yeah, I like the way it is in there also. There could be a conflict with.
Do we want to include 3103.1.1 in our significant changes report?
Well, yeah, because that says approved by the building official. So, the building official has to approve it.
So, yes, we want to include this new section in our existing amendments report.
When you say included in your report, you mean like?
Well, is the addition of 3103.1.1 a significant change in the model code language that we should include in our significant changes report?
It is significant.
Yeah, it's significant. Yeah, you should include it.
Okay. Do we need an amendment to this section?
Well, there's discussions that there may be a state amendment coming in that the 180 days is pretty long. I know John Sue and some of the structural committees are thinking that, but I'd leave it up to the industry if they put in a code change proposal. There might be one coming in for that.
As far as cost on this one, was there cost included? Will we anticipate that this is generating cost for the users?
Well, that's what's weird. If you leave it up longer, right, there's a cost, but it actually taking it down earlier than reapplying and putting another one up. You see what I'm saying? I don't know how you do that with the cost. My personal opinion, there is no cost. It either is or it's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know how the cost would be if you took it down, put another one up, something, I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. I don't think there's a real cost, so.
Yeah.
It doesn't make anything more expensive, so I'd just
Yeah.
say no.
Yeah, I don't think it makes it more. Yeah, that's all. Cost is always a hard one for me. Because reason it's hard is because doing it for my for the national amendments, you have to put a cost proposal in there, and how you determine that is always weird. So.
All right. What about these sections for 31035 for the bleachers?
No, we don't need a state amendment for that, in my opinion.
Well, are we considering these sections significant changes?
Yes, because you have to have structural retirement. It is a significant change because you got to do structural analysis to make sure those bleachers support the loads. They just made it clearer in the code. And that's because people were installing bleachers that were collapsing around the country that weren't actually being designed, you know, like at the football stadium and stuff at schools, things like that. So that does add a cost.
Do we need it? We don't need an amendment to any of these sections?
Not in my opinion, but you know, I let other people add in.
Okay.
I wouldn't think so either.
I mean, I was there when they were doing the argument for a lot of these things, so I kind of agreed with some of the reasons, but that's just me. Some people could have a different opinion on that. Well, you remember that reduction there, right? That's only for a temporary structure, right? Just FYI. So what they're doing is allowing for the snow load. If you do this, you could actually reduce it. Just giving you an FYI. So it's actually a cost savings if you really want to think about it.
So for these, are all of these adding a little bit of cost to the code users?
Well, the item table 1 actually reduces the cost. You know, the reduction for the ground snow load for these things, that actually reduces the cost. The structural requirements will increase the cost. I mean, now you have to do it. So the answer is yes, it increases the cost because some of these weren't being submitted for a permit.
And then as far as amendments in these sections so far, do we need any?
I mean, Mike, you're really good at this. I don't think we do, but that's.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. I mean, you know, things like bleachers not falling down could probably be considered a good thing.
that's what I think too.
Same, you know, to apply to structural loads of temporary buildings. We don't want anything to come down. You know, if it's middle of summer, sure, they can, you know, disregard snow loads, but you know, if it's middle of January, let's not.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess as I enter these just line by line, can we just kind of talk about cost and whether or not we want an amendment to these sections, or if we're gonna have folks, or if we're expecting industry to potentially supply one. and then we can get through 3103 probably a little faster. Flood loads. Was this one add cost?
Yeah. Where are you looking at the?
3103.6.1.3 for flood loads.
Yeah, it adds cost.
Do we want a state amendment here?
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm just one person.
That's okay. If anybody disagrees with Hoyt, please speak up.
I can tell you, I went through a lot of these things. I don't think, just to let you know, I'm going to say no on all state amendments, but that's
Okay. Seismic loads probably gives us some cost.
well, it's A, B, and C. So, I mean, there's C. I don't know. Oh, yes, it does add cost, but no. You know.
Ice loads adds cost, but no amendment.
Back to seismic, even here, it's shall be permitted to be taken as 75%. So that could even be argued as a cost savings for.
That's actually, yeah, that's from the existing
So,
building.
yeah, it's a either or. A lot of these can go either way.
Yeah, the problem is they weren't even in the code, so people were just making it up as they were going.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff that's been thrown in here was because it wasn't in the code, but these structures were being built, and so it got put into the code. And I've gone through these pretty thoroughly. I don't think we need any amendments, but I don't see where there's a specific area in Washington state that we have to do an amendment to these provisions of the code. I guess I should be clear. The only thing on the tsunami loads, and I forgot about that, you just got to coordinate that, because you remember we have an adoption of chapter 16, right? About the tsunami loads. Oh, it says not required. Never mind. Yeah, you're not supposed to worry about tsunami loads in these things. So.
And Dustin Lansdall, I have another meeting commitment. I have to drop off. Alternate, and Dan's here.
We are good. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Bill. I'm gonna have to leave before 4 o'clock. I've got a 4 o'clock I gotta get to.
All righty. Let's see.
Will we lose quorum then?
No, we'll still be good on quorum if Bill
Okay.
leaves us. All right, 3106.3. Where am I at? 3106.
3106.3, that does add costs. Oh yeah, you already had that. Sorry.
No amendment. And 3103.7. I got some goofy stuff here. 1 second. Three dot seven serviceability. Add some cost. No amendment needed. 3.8 controlled occupancy procedures. All right, that's all of those in that big chunk.
Yeah. And the fire will be looking at some of that too, because some of that's coming, there's some stuff in the fire code that you may have some stuff. So just noting, just make sure you coordinate with, if the fire comes up with something different. Just an FYI. Because there's some like control systems, the fire code deals with that a lot. Just make sure if there's so we don't mess up by having the building code in a conflict with the IFC.
So we have 3109.1 with an amendment for swimming pools. Pretty much kicks pools of a certain size out to the Department of Health.
Yeah, that's all it.
And just so you guys know, they are in the process of revising their aquatic water facilities regulations in these WACs here. They're in the process of updating that. I've been attending their meetings, and there has been a whole lot of stuff that's concerning for me for the building code as far as correlations and things.
Will you let us know when that gets finalized?
Yes.
Okay.
Our next section of amendments is in section 3116 for the fixed guideway transit and passenger rail systems. I believe that this is the section that we need to move.
When you say move, you mean move for because of the reference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like this is all additive after the section here. So maybe it'll need to be renumbered to 3115 in here. And
yeah, just so that means basically you're changing all the figures, like it would be 3115 and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just changing the numbering.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I thought you would do.
And then with the fire code going over this one, they did some additional review on NFPA 130.
Oh, good.
And we'll probably want to correlate any changes they have for that here as well. I'm just looking. It looks like 3116 is all just one section, 3116.1, and it's all just modifications to NFPA 130, or actually 3116.2, and then it's all just NFPA 130 modifications in there. So let's see.
Yeah, one of the things that I have found, Dustin, when you're done, when this is all done, is after the fire code stuff, sometimes the coordination, when we do state amendments, we change the NFPA rating for XYZ reasons, and we don't pick that up in the building code. So if any NFPA stuff changes or something, there's amendments, it should go back and make sure it's picked up in the building code, because that's been missed before. Just an FYI, yeah, because it's thrown me for a loop a couple times when the fire code changes something and it's not brought to my attention. I went, oh, I mean, it's not a huge deal. I mean, they do their review and I do my review, but it's kind of nice to have a match.
Yeah.
Sure, Mike's had that problem too. It's like,
Hey, Dustin, I'm gonna just throw this out there. Is there a reason that the building code tag wouldn't look at having their own chapter like the fire code does for the fixed guideway?
Not that I'm aware of. If anybody here on the call would maybe have an answer why we don't want to separate this out into a different chapter. But I don't see any reason why we would why we're married to it or anything like that.
Just it helps with numbering. I just know that's, they help with the fire code that way. Didn't mess up anything.
Yeah, it's just, I could tell you why. It's just because there are two different committees that are working on it. So the fire code is written and they have a lot of the fire code is a lot more maintenance stuff that's in there. So it was hard to get everything to match exactly. And the code correlation committee.
But I'm only talking about the one that talks about the NFPA 130. That's all they're making amendments to, was that whole section for the fixed guideway that Sound Transit proposed. So that's why the fire code just made it, for the state of Washington, made it its own chapter just to address the 130 change. I don't know why the building code doesn't do the same thing and just have it its own Washington state specific chapter.
That's a good idea. We could. You just have to make sure you correlate with, because we don't usually typically make changes to that. We let the fire code make changes to that. So.
It would just need to be correlated. It's probably an ideal way to do it, but right now we have amendments probably in 10, 12 different spots.
Yeah.
That relate to it.
And the other thing is, I mean, just to, if you pull it out of the fire code and you throw it into the building code, it's not a bad idea. I agree with you, but not everywhere in our state do we have, people. You kind of want to keep it in the fire, making the decisions on these personally, and not to the building official. You want your fire marshal to deal with that, but because some places in the state, our state fire marshal does the reviews for jurisdictions, right? And I think if you start mixing it by say, or building official, people would try to make the building official make that decision. So in smaller jurisdictions. That's the reason I think. So dealing with smaller jurisdictions when they don't always have, fire reviewers or. What do you think, Mike? I mean, that's what I've found. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's more
like
of it just the way it kind of landed in the building code. And then, each affected chapter, would it be ideal to, lump it into either a chapter 4 chapter or a chapter 31? Then yes, that probably would be ideal and keep it easier to maintain that way. But
it's very similar to chapter 9. Chapter 9, if you look at that's all done by the fire, but they incorporate it in the building code. So if you look in the brackets of the code, they'll have brackets by it. If they have brackets with B, that's the building people dealing with it. Some places you'll see B and F. That means a fire tag, the fire national and the building both deal with it, things like that.
Hey, regrets, guys. I got to jump to my other meeting. See you soon.
Thank you, Bill. So we still have a quorum, and we are in a position now to entertain a motion to move Chapter 31 to our master document.
I'll make a motion to move Chapter 31 to our master document.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on Chapter 31? All those in favor of moving Chapter 31 to our master document, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none and seeing no hands, that motion passes. And Todd, it looks like you're back just in time to take us across the finish line.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So are we in a good spot? Does everyone feel we'll cut off at our scheduled time at 4?
I actually have to get running. I have to
Okay.
have a meeting coming up right after this one.
No, let's hold to that. We published it. So, okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Is there any other business to close out this meeting? All right. If not, we're
Hey,
adjourned.
can I ask one
Yeah, go ahead.
question? Yeah,
Yeah.
real quick. Are we going to be looking at the appendices of the building code? Or are those just gonna say jurisdiction by jurisdiction? Yeah, that's the one thing I know. There's been a lot of
So-
appendices that have been added to the building code, a few additional ones.
So we have reviewed Appendix P, and it has to move a little bit for some of those new appendices being included in there. My plan on that one was to look at them as a whole, and go over just all the appendixes real quick and try to move them all to the master document. If there's some proposed changes to those sections, we would need proposals to them. And then we'd also need to, if we're going to make changes, we'd consider adopting them statewide for local jurisdictions to use as well. So there'd be some other amendments needed in the administrative sections of our WAC to adopt those. But if we wanted to entertain some of that, we could definitely do that. But my plan was kind of to just hit the appendices as one section and get them moved forward.
Okay, I was just curious. I just didn't know how that was going to be with the state, where because I know sexes by sexes appendix can be adopted by jurisdictions. The big thing was the earthquake recording instrumental appendix A or appendix L. It'd be so nice if we could start getting more of those. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Good question. Okay. Nothing else now. We're adjourned. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody for the work. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Have a good week until then.
Joy.